All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight and for being invested in the future of our children here at the Laguna Department of Education. Thank you to the LDOE board for giving me this opportunity to host tonight's stakeholder session. My name is Monica Whitmore. I am currently the director for the Office of Laguna Learning. I'm a Pueblo of Laguna member, and I have graduated from all of the Laguna Department of Education systems here, as long as the local Laguna Acoma High School. So it's very full circle for me to be in this position, and I appreciate all of you very much for your time. Speaking of the LDOE board members, I want to give due diligence and introduce them tonight, as most of them are here with us. So we have President Leonora Carpio. We have Dr. Natalie Martinez, who is serving as our Vice President. We have Mr. Aaron Sarcino, who is currently our Secretary. I don't think he's here, but we'll chat him anyway. And then we have Amy Arkey, who's also here with us. We have Mr. Jim Issues. I see him in the back there. Thank you, Jim. We have Mr. Chris Ami, who's also on our board. And we have Mr. Ken Dutsaway, who said our lovely invocation. Thank you so much, board, for being here. We appreciate you. And I also want to give a big thanks to my fellow LDOE directors for your support and well wishes tonight. And I wish you all good luck in the interviews tomorrow. So with that said, with introductions being done, we are going to go ahead and turn the mic on, and I'm going to pass it over to our candidates to be able to briefly introduce themselves. Please share what you will with the stakeholders. We have various stakeholders here all seated around. Some of them are employees, my fellow colleagues. Some of them are community members, parents, etc. So please feel free to be as descriptive as you would like.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for inviting me. My name is Amy Suman. I currently work as a reading interventionist at a high school charter. I come to you with 18 years as a teacher and administrative resource person. And I also spent 4 years working in other systems, including the director of the Office of Health Equity during COVID at DOH. And then also as a research and social scientist at the University of New Mexico. And I'm very honored to be here back at Laguna. I spent about a half a semester working at Laguna Acoma at the high school, and it's great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Kawatsi Sehopa, Wahiname, Petra Solomon, Ushahanu, Jami Washti, Natsik. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. And just a little bit about myself. I'm the director for Laguna Pueblo Partners for Success. I've been in that capacity of Public Law 102477 and the Section 166 programs for 20 years, celebrated 20 years this year, and administration for coming up 1 year. So I'm really excited to be here today. And I also forget to mention that I run a vote rehabilitation program for the Pueblo of Laguna and also the direct education scholarship for the Pueblo of Laguna. I'm very excited to be here. Just as Ms. Whitmore had stated, I'm kind of also a product of Laguna, went through the program that I run now. I actually went through it when I was younger. So job opportunities for summer youth, did that, and scholarship program also, the Pueblo has helped me. So I'm very excited to be here, and I look forward to answering the questions that you will have. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Robert Sims, Jr. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come visit and interview all of us today. To tell you a little bit about myself, I'm an educator for 26 years. I've served in a variety of capacities. Presently, I'm an assistant principal at a high school. However, I've been a principal, I've been an education director, early childhood education. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Robert Teacher, Jr. I'm a behavior interventionist, as well as a host of other responsibilities. However, I'm a champion for kids regardless of the age level or the developmental level. And I look forward to possibly serving you on a greater capacity. And I just want to thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to answering your questions this evening.
Good evening. I'm sorry about that. That was a little too close. My name is Dr. Berenice Gutierrez, and it seems like we were going up in years. I am in my 28th year in education. Started out down south in the Gadsden School District as a bilingual elementary teacher. And then I've moved around the country a little bit. Now I'm back here, back in New Mexico, where I started my career. So it feels like coming home. I was born and raised in El Paso, and I'm currently serving as the Assistant Superintendent for Equity and Supports with Albuquerque Public Schools, which is a great opportunity to serve the community as I can oversee counseling and nursing and family engagement, anything that has to do with serving students and serving our communities. I currently oversee. Have done a lot in my career, served in a lot of different roles, but my passion has always been ensuring that we have equity and strong educational opportunities for all students so that they can have strong outcomes and are able to enter adulthood with a variety of choices in what they wish to do. And thank you for having me. Look forward to getting to answer more questions and getting to know you better.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your wonderful introductions, everyone. And with that said, some of these questions are a little lengthy, so I will read them once. If you need it to be repeated before you answer the question again, just let me know and I can go ahead and do that. The introductions are great, and we're really looking forward to seeing what you all bring to the table to us tonight. So the first question, and we'll go ahead and start since the microphone's at the end and you started with the introductions, we'll start at the end and work our way back this way, back and forth, and then once more again. So the first question for you, Ms. Gutierrez, is LDOE encompasses programming, education, and services to children from birth to adulthood and under various umbrellas of federally run programs, grant programs, NM Public Education Department requirements, and with expectations from the Laguna Pueblo Council. What is your experience working with these types of programs, services, and funding sources?
Thank you for that question. I'm sorry, I'm feeling really awkward with the microphone. That is currently the captain that I'm serving.
Give us 1 second. Sorry, I think we're having some technical difficulties. Can we take a pause and get our wonderful IT? And I can also check the mic. Yep. Awesome.
Okay,
Also,
good.
I would like to take the time to thank Lorenzo and Dax for their wonderful service and facilitation and IT and getting us live streamed. We appreciate you guys so much.
Well, I'm actually glad that it wasn't working because then I can get up. I'm not used to sitting behind a table. So to answer your question, the role that I currently have is, you pretty much read the job description. Like I said, I oversee any program that serves the community. And under the big umbrella, I also have several that are grant funded. I oversee Title I, which for Albuquerque Public Schools is $35 million budget. So under Title I, we have McKinney-Vento, foster care, and just a variety of different programs, lots of grants, lots of reporting that we have to ensure. We constantly look at our budget, making sure that it's being spent correctly, that it's being spent according to the grant, and that we are on track to meet the outcomes that we wrote into the grant. I do also oversee Indian education. We have a wonderful gentleman, Phil Farson, who works with all of the pueblos. And at the end of March, we did have all of the pueblos come and meet with the superintendent and I. They hold us very accountable, which I really like, because we want to make sure that we are serving the needs of our students. I have experience with Title III, which is something else that I oversee over at Albuquerque. My entire career has really been in bilingual education, so I'm very, very familiar with Title III. I also oversee EOS, which has Title IX. I mean, you name the title, I pretty much am overseeing it right now. So I'm very familiar with federal programs. I started out my career as an elementary educator, but have done all levels. And I think I might need you to repeat that just one more time.
Yes, ma'am. LDOE encompasses programming, education, and services to children from birth to adulthood and under various umbrellas of federally run programs, grant programs, New Mexico Public Education Department requirements, and with expectations from the Laguna Public Council. What is your experience working with these types of programs, services, and funding sources?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. And while you were reading that, it also came to mind that I am overseeing Martinez Yazzie implementation in Albuquerque Public Schools and making sure that we are following the judge's orders, and we have our Yazzie Martinez meetings every other week. As I said, pretty much any service that touches our children or community, I currently oversee, and in prior roles have done so as well. So that's the bulk of my experience.
Thank you so much for your response. And for our stakeholders, we're on question 1. Everything's color-coded as well. Thank you to Ms. Rachel for that. So if you look on your score sheet, you'll see that the name tags are color-coded to each person, if that's helpful. So I'll give you all a few moments to jot down your thoughts, notes, comments, and we can go ahead and pass the mic on to Mr. Sims Jr. And let me know if you need a repeat of the question, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. So the question is, LDOE encompasses programming, education, and services to children from birth to adulthood and under various umbrellas of federally run programs, grant programs, New Mexico Public Education Department requirements, and with expectations from the Laguna Public Council. What is your experience working with these types of programs, services, and funding sources?
Thank you. So as previously mentioned in my introduction, in my 26 plus years of working in the field of education, I've been very privileged to serve in a variety of capacities. I've served 15 plus years as an early childhood educator. I've served 3 plus years as an early childhood special education teacher. I've served in career and technical education, which is very important in the 21st century. I've worked in the higher ed department as Director of Outreach, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. As one of my peers just mentioned, I presently serve on New Mexico PED Black Education Advisory Committee. Part of my research, my dissertation research, was evolving around the state of New Mexico and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and making sure, as well as what my colleagues stated, that we are in compliance with the Yazzie Martinez, as well as other new legislation to make sure that all children, not some, but all children, receive a high-quality educational experience. This, beyond just my teaching and my administrative experience, I've been a community servant for the past 4.5 years that I've been here in New Mexico, just learning about the various policies, the various grant opportunities, the various, when you're having those difficult conversations, the inequities that are presently available in certain communities. And, continuing to learn. I'm a lifelong learner in the field of education. So there are certain things that I'm very strong in, whether it's Title I, Title II, and there are other areas that I'm continuing to grow in, whereas I could be the best leader that I can be in those fields. But most importantly, when it comes to the LDOE and New Mexico Department of Public Education Department, I'm just but I'm very much a servant for all children. And I'm looking forward to just bringing all of those skills, the expertise, my vision, as well as my desire to elevate our academic standards, as well as increase our funding for Laguna. And so I just thank you for taking this time to ask me that question. But once again, I want to reemphasize that there's a lot more that I desire to learn. Wherefore, I could bring all of those experiences, those fundings, and those ideals to this community, as well as collaborate with all of the stakeholders here. Wherefore, we can move forward to making our children the best version of themselves.
Thank you so much for the response, Mr. Sims. Ms. Solomon, do you need the question repeated?
No, I think I can. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Monica. For one thing, one of the main things is working with tribal communities and the tribal leadership. That's number one. You have to really, really see what the tribe wants, because the tribe is the one that governs the people. They govern us. They have what the people want. They were elected by us. So that's very, very, very important. Those are the people who say, okay, for the grants that we go after, for funding that we go after. They allocate money for us. And so it's very important that we meet with the tribal leadership, get their input from what the people, our people, tell us that needs to be done. All the other, BIA, BIE, all the grants that the schools get funding for, that all has to go through the tribe. So it's a good understanding. You have to have a good understanding with that when it goes and reporting out. And the short time that I've been in my capacity, that's something that's always a learning process, because things change. Everything's changing now. Lot of demand now, especially for funds. We're going to be competing. We have to be more, we have to be out there to try to get more funding for our teachers, for our community, for our kids, because it does start from birth, all the way from birth to adulthood. That's how our programs are run. That's how these tribal programs are run from our school. So from the babies to adulthood, we got to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that we have that funding source for there. So I think that working with the tribal community and the leadership is the number one thing for us, as far as it, because we can go after grant, but we need their input and their backing in order to make everything function as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petra. And we'll go ahead and go on to Ms. Suman. Did you need to repeat up the question, ma'am?
No, ma'am. I think I got it. Thank
Awesome.
you. Well, I wanted to start off by telling you a quick little story, and that is when I first came out to Laguna to teach through the Teen Outreach Program through a partnership with DOH and the University of New Mexico. I came out with my fellow research scientists, and we were armed with all of our data and all of our analysis and all kinds of things that we wanted to tell and share at the Tribal Council. And we sat down and we presented everything about how we were going to do this intervention to help what we used to call at-risk teens. I prefer to call them at promise. So we came up with all these ideas of what we were going to do, and it sounded really great. And then a voice in the back said, "Why don't you ask the Laguna what they need?" And it was a moment where we all took a step back and were like, oh yeah. So what I wanted to tell you to begin with is the listening factor. So when you were talking about the Tribal Council, I appreciated that because I have a lot of knowledge about the federal programs. Having been Title IX coordinator for a time at New Mexico Public Education Department, having worked under grants with CDC and SNAP-Ed and USDA at the university and all the grant reporting that goes with that and the oversight. Being a fiscally responsible person myself, I know how doubly important it is when you're spending somebody else's money. Working as a Title I reading interventionist right now, I'm paid through ESSER funds, and of course the Title I budgets that, as many of you know, here in New Mexico, 80% of our schools are Title I schools. And if you work in some of our schools, they are segregated not just once racially, but also twice economically. If you want to know how well those sorts of schools achieve, We simply need to refer back to Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954. So I'm somebody that's going to go after every bit of grant money that I can find, try to utilize whatever laws that we can to get funding for our schools and especially for our teachers. Let's not forget Title VI. Our teachers are the backbones of school systems. Teachers are the ones who are first line of defense. They're the ones that are seeing things that not everybody else is seeing. So I want to make sure that we have really strong teachers in our classrooms who not only want to work hard, but we retain them. Because right now, with the turnover in education, our kids have to have solid relationships. And if they have a teacher that keeps turning over or what have you, we're not going to be able to create those relationships that are so integral to healing after COVID. I do think that health equity and educational equity are absolutely tied together. We know that if kids can't read at a 6th grade level, they will not be able to take care of their health. They will not be able to fill out a mortgage application or a car loan or be able to do things to advocate for themselves. So I am very excited by looking at your website and seeing what your early childhood folks are doing. I'm excited to work for the GRADS program, which is Graduate Reality and Dual Life Skills, which supports our pregnant and parenting teens and is a big source of getting our kids what they need from birth all the way through. So thank you for that question. Sorry it was a bit long-winded, but I'm with some really strong candidates here. Y'all are smart. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response. And I agree, stakeholders, you have your work cut out for you. So those were all really great responses. So thank you so much. I will give a few minutes for the stakeholders to finish jotting down your items. And then we'll turn to the second page where you'll start again. And again, we're going to start with Ms. Suman and go back this way. So I'll give you all just a few moments to finish. I can still see some people jotting down some items. Great job, board, on these questions. I feel like there's a lot to cover with an LDOE, so these are all really great ways to see what types of responses we get in terms of how we're operating and what we're doing. So it looks like everyone's wrapping up. I still see a few people jotting some things. Okay, everyone's flipping pages, so let's go ahead and move on. The second stakeholder question is, how does your leadership style help build strong, collaborative teamwork among employees while encouraging exemplary student participant outcomes in a community setting?
Excellent. I believe that COVID recovery, because I have to start by saying that you all know that obviously we all went through trauma during COVID and the pandemic. But here in New Mexico, we didn't just suffer a pandemic. We suffered what's called a syndemic, which is a clustering of several population health diseases that were compounded. So with more than 30% of our state speaking a language other than English, 30% of our state living with chronic disability and illness, 30% of our state living at or below the federal poverty line, and then comes COVID. In 2019, the CDC declared New Mexico the most socially vulnerable state in the union. Now, there is a pile of scientific evidence that links resiliency in the community to level of social vulnerability. And what we have to do coming back from COVID is we have to care for our students. Our teachers are a big way that they're doing that, because depending on who you were locked down with and their level of functionality, that is playing in tremendously right now with how well the students are able to learn, okay? So when we talk about the idea that our students really, we want our kids to achieve, obviously. We want our kids to feel supported. But one of the things that we have to do, right, is the relationship building piece. And when you talk about community schools, you're talking about those 4 pillars, right? You're talking about academic enrichment that is also culturally and linguistically appropriate, as per Martinez-Yazzie. Because Martinez-Yazzie, when Sarah Singleton ruled in favor of Martinez-Yazzie, was 2019, and everything happened. Then came COVID, and all of those great ideas started going down the drain because we were so forced into trying to deal with COVID. So we have those academic enrichments, right? We need integrated supports, and I really like seeing on your websites how much early intervention you have for your kiddos, especially among neurodiversity. and kids with learning disabilities. We have to have resources for our parents. So I like the piece of engaging our community members. And then extended learning time, whether that's a longer school year, whether that's a longer school day, before and after programs. So when we talk about community schools, those are the 4 pillars. And I love that one of the first things that they told us is you're going to be meeting with the stakeholders. Now, as a candidate, that's intimidating, right? But what it tells me is that this is a community that values what their community wants rather than a top-down approach. So when we talk about community and being part of a community school, which clearly this is, I feel adept at working in these kinds of systems because I believe in creating collective impact so that we can make things happen and make shifts happen. And that starts with building teams. Having been a teacher and a coach my whole life, I really believe that you find your stars and you plug them in so that they can lift up other people, and then you build your bench. You work on the folks that need a little bit more help, and you raise them up and make leaders out of them. So that's my philosophy on how community schools work and how I like to think of myself as being a team builder. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response. We'll go ahead and move on to Ms. Solomon.
Thank you, Ms. Monica. One of the things I really truly believe as far as our community goes is that everybody needs to be involved. That means all supportive services that the Pueblo of Laguna has, from behavioral health to everything that we have here, the veterans programs. Because one thing that I realize and you see throughout our community is that a lot of people do not know what we all do. And yet we have all our community members, our parents here, our grandparents here, and a lot of them don't know about what other things that the Pueblo offers. And I believe that's very important, building us as far as leadership, because everybody needs to be involved. We're trying to help all our students grow and succeed all the way from birth to adulthood. So it's very important that everybody's on board when it comes to our leadership on how we're going to do it. Everybody needs to have a seat at the table for our teachers. And as far as leadership goes, I totally believe that everybody should have your just training, professional development. To me, that's very important because, like one of the candidates here said, ongoing learning. We never stop learning, all the way from the babies all the way to adults. We're still learning. I'm still learning. So I think it's very important when you have that opportunity to reach out to other entities and say, this person needs this assistance, or can you provide this help? There's always ways to make it work. And that's how our community gets stronger, our kids get stronger, and our teachers and our families get stronger. So that's my belief as far as the leadership goes, and just including everybody, because everybody has a say in how our community is and how it's going to be moving forward. So thank you, Ms. Monica.
Thank you, Ms. Solomon, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Sims Jr.
Thank you. Can you please repeat the question again?
Yes, sir. How does your leadership style help build strong collaborative teamwork among employees while encouraging exemplary student participant outcomes in a community setting?
Thank you. And so it's very important as a candidate here with the stakeholders is to keep the perspective on keeping the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is students. And educating and empowering the whole child. And so what does the whole child look like? It's not just empowering them academically. It's also empowering them socially. So you tap into their social emotional needs. It's also empowering them if they come from a demographic or a family whereas they lack food, they lack water, they lack proper housing. You have to make sure that you take care of the whole child. And in taking care of the whole child, you must also take into consideration their family needs. If their family is lacking or if their family is in need, school is not always their number one priority because they're worried about their mom, their dad, their grandparents. So empowering and taking care of the whole child is very important. How do you take care of the whole child? You also take care of their parents and their grandparents. You bring them to the table. You have those collaborative conversations as far as what is working in Laguna right now. Being an outsider at the present moment, if I'm selected, of course I will want to move here. But being an outsider, I want to bring everyone and give everyone a chance to have a seat at the table. If the table is too small, you build a bigger table. You bring in more chairs, you bring in more tables so that everybody literally has a seat at that table. And you welcome everyone's voice. And welcoming everybody's voice, including the teachers, we need to make sure that we collect quality and quantitative data so that we can look at, once again, what has been working. Because if it's working well, why change it? If it's not working well, you have those collaborative conversations as far as what do we need to do to be better. And you look at who has been having a voice. Because sometimes some of the brightest people have not been invited, once again, to that table to share their ideals. So I want to make sure that I invite everyone to have an opportunity to share their ideas, look at our research, look at our data, and to go back to the original part of my question, I'm a servant leader. I'm a visionary. But in part of me being a visionary and a servant leader, I need to be able to provide you a 1 year, a 3 year, and a 5 year plan as far as where am I taking you. Because you're not going to want to follow me if I don't have a good plan in place. If I'm just saying, okay, I'm the new superintendent or I'm the new leader, and I'm sharing with you all of my credentials, but I don't have a solid plan, why would you want to follow me? And so my goal is to make sure that I give you a quality plan. I welcome your ideas so that we have a plan together. It's not just my plan. It's not your plan. It's our plan. And we put together some accountability measures and some timelines to see, are we meeting the goals that we set? And if we're not, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's have those conversations and let's analyze what's working and what's not working. Let's go back to the drawing board together. So at the beginning and the end of the day, we can say, not I, but we can say, what went well, we celebrate those small wins, and what's not working, we continue to chip at it and work together as a team. It's not just an individual, it's literally a team. It's a community. And your voices are needed, your voices are welcome, and your voices are desired to make our children globally competitive so that not only are they successful, but they want to continue to move past that baton to the next generation. But passing that baton, most importantly, I need to make sure that I take time to learn the rich history and the rich culture of our community and build from there. Because in the process of being innovative, you want to make sure that you preserve the rich quality history of Laguna at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you for your response, sir. We'll go ahead and move on to Ms. Gutierrez. Please let me know if you would like the question repeated.
No, I got it. Thank you. So I will say, first and foremost, as an educational leader, that I am unapologetically student-centered. I put students at the forefront of everything that I do and making sure, like I said before, that they have strong educational outcomes. I really like that one of the board goals says that the students get to define what success means. Success doesn't always mean titles and money. It means different things to different people. But if you don't have a strong foundation, your opportunities are limited. And so the building that foundation is very important for me. And I will also share, I'm a storyteller. So to tell you how I build trusting relationships and that end up creating those strong outcomes, I'll be really quick and succinct because I know we're trying to stay on time. But I was principal at a middle school in the city of San Antonio. And when I was handed the keys and my badge, I was told this is the worst middle school in the entire county, all of Bexar County. And they had been in improvement required for 5 years. The school was getting ready to be taken over by the Texas Education Agency. So once I had the keys and the badge, I thought, oh boy, I have my work cut out for me. And they gave me 3 assistant principals to help me turn the school around. I had exactly 8 months to turn the school around. Luckily, we were all very skilled in one particular area. Somebody was math and science, somebody was social studies, somebody was language arts, and I was second language learners. And while I was the principal, I wasn't the only leader, and I didn't know everything. So between the 4 of us, we divided and conquered. We leveraged our skill set and our areas of strength. And while we did not get the school out of improvement required, we had double-digit gains in all tested areas.
But the next question that we have on the table is one that is not only near and dear to our staff, our parents, our board, but to my team specifically. So I'm really excited to see this question here on the table for you all tonight. And in the name of fairness, right, we're going to go ahead and switch up the style a little bit. So I'll go ahead and switch that up so we can, right, we practice taking turns. So we'll go ahead and have someone new lead off this question. So the last question of the evening, is Laguna language and culture is a priority for staff, parents, community, and tribal council. As a new superintendent for LDOE, what strategies would you implement to incorporate traditional Pueblo values, celebrate cultural practices, and include the Laguna language? And we'll be starting off this question with Mr. Sims, Jr.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. This question is very important to me.
I'm sorry, 1 second, sir. If you can go ahead and switch that microphone off, we're going to have you come up here. For some reason, it doesn't want to cooperate tonight, so we'll go ahead and have you respond up here.
Thank you very much for this question. Before I answer this question, I want to briefly go back to the last question, where they pretty much kind of tie in. When I speak about educating the whole child, and I spoke about the various important pieces to that puzzle, there was one piece to that puzzle that I forgot, which was the school board itself. School board leaders are very courageous leaders. Oftentimes, they don't get the credit and the kudos that they need and that they deserve. They get the complaints, or they get fussed at, but they don't get the thank yous for sacrificing your time and your effort and your willingness to do what's best for kids. And so, to go back to the original question of preserving the language and the culture, or what does that mean to me? Just being very unapologetic with this response, history is very important to me. As a school leader of color, I clearly understand that representation matters. I also understand that history matters. And when you're having those very important, but for some very controversial conversations, it's very important for our children and our stakeholders and our community leaders and community members of Laguna to understand and make sure that all understand Native American history and understand the trauma, understand just the rich history, to make sure that we preserve it, make sure that it's not diluted, make sure that the language is preserved, making sure that artifacts are preserved. If you want a child to grow to be their best version of themselves, you must preserve their history. You must expose them to the richness of who they are, what they are, and where they came from. Whereas you give them the strength to carry that baton to the next generation. Preserving language is very, very essential. Preserving all aspects of a child's culture it's very essential. And in my heart, it's non-negotiable. I, as a school leader, am very passionate about preserving both language and culture, but I'm even more passionate about creating listening tours and listening sessions with parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, school leaders, school teachers, school board members, all stakeholders, to learn from you, what do you believe is important? What do you believe is missing? Because if there's artifacts, if there's history, if there's whatever is missing, if we have access and the ability to obtain it, I want to make sure that we go get it. We preserve it and we make it available to our children, making sure that we have highly qualified teachers and educators who can continue that tradition, to share that legacy and that tradition with our children. And I'm just totally open to all ideas, all solutions, to make sure that our children have everything they need and making sure that the community has everything that they need and want to make sure that for generations and centuries to go, that everything about Laguna, everything about New Mexico, everything about the language and the culture itself is made accessible, it's made available, and um, it's celebrated. It's celebrated through the arts, celebrated through the food. There's really no limit. And if there's something that I'm missing, I apologize, but I promise you, being a great listener and a great leader, I will make sure that everyone is at the table to share those ideas so that we can make sure that we are doing the best that we can to give our children the best education.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Sims Jr. We're going to go ahead and move on to Miss Amy Suman next. So if you can come on up and please let me know if you would like the question repeated. We're good? Okay.
Language is central to identity. And one of the things that's so important for any student anywhere is the development of identity. I'm very impressed with the language revitalization programs that Laguna has sponsored and continues to expand upon year after year. I love looking and seeing that the preschoolers are not only learning words in English, but they're also learning their corresponding names in their native language. I love that there's attention paid to feast days, that there are land acknowledgements, that there are greetings and invocations in the native language. Obviously, being a white woman, I enjoy a privilege that most people in New Mexico will never have. However, that makes it both my duty and my obligation to make sure that doors are opened so that other people may come in and speak for themselves. That being said, one of the things that I think is so important when we talk about language is recognizing the linguicide that occurred during the period of colonization and trying to do whatever we can to create reparations and restoration so that we can have those students have identity and so they can grow into adults who are proud to speak their tongue when they want and how they want without being silenced. So I think that's what I would say is that I would want to, especially because we know what the human brain does from 0 to age 3, we know that that's a time of incredible rapid learning when bilingualism, trilingualism, multilingualism, that's the time that we can really make a difference. I would want, if I was selected, to really double down on what the early childhood programs around linguistics look like. To make sure that the early language was being invoked in all of the early classrooms, including the new moms that have given birth. That even working with pregnant and parenting teens, it's so important to read and talk to your baby. It's attachment, and secure attachment leads to more socially adaptable adults. And I think being able to use native language in that way as a form of attachment, as a form of scaffolding social emotional learning, and revitalizing the language and building upon the existing programs would definitely be a big priority for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response. That was great. We'll go ahead and now have Ms. Gutierrez. And please let me know if you would like the question repeated. No? Great. Thank you.
I am really glad that this question was included for us because bilingual education is what got me into becoming an educator. I actually went into business management when I went to college, and I did not ever see myself being an educator until I realized that schools continue to perpetuate the deficit orientation towards those for whom English is not their first language. And so I quickly course corrected and became a bilingual educator. Language does not exist in isolation. And when I was working on my doctoral dissertation, I focused on mentoring, and then I created a group for Latino students that I called Future Hispanic Leaders, or we later on just called it FHL. And our whole thing was pride of culture, pride of language, and pride of heritage. Because I saw too many of them being embarrassed and not wanting to admit that they spoke Spanish, or not wanting to admit that they were Latinos. And I thought there's something wrong here, especially since they were in a language immersion program. And I wanted them to remember, be proud that you speak more than one language. Be proud of who you come from and where you come from, and be proud of your history. So then, fast forwarding, when I worked as a chief academic officer for a dual language charter organization, I was part of developing all of our different policies and procedures around what does it look like. And I'm going to be a little bit Spanish centric because that's what it was. We were focusing on Spanish immersion, and we talked about what does that look like? How are we going to make sure that when the kids leave us, that they don't put Spanish in that secondary position and English again in that primary position? And so we had to develop, like you were saying, what are the strategies? One of the strategies was every adult in the building needs to speak Spanish to the kids. They need to see us using Spanish, answering the phone. They need to see us talking to each other in Spanish. They need to see that we are elevating the language, that we don't default to English as the language of choice. And I loved it because sometimes I would walk into a classroom and start talking to the teacher in English, and they would correct me. They would say, Maestra Español. And there's nothing like a fifth grader, or I'm sorry, a 5-year-old, letting you know around here, we speak Spanish, right? So they got the subtle messaging that English is important, but it's not the language. There are other languages out there that are just as beautiful and that we can be proud to know. As a bilingual person, there are some things that I just need to say in my native language because it comes from my heart. And translated into English, it doesn't have the same flavor, it doesn't have the same meaning, it doesn't have the same impact. So when I say language doesn't exist in isolation, we have to think about all that. What language does your heart speak? What language do your ancestors speak when they're coming through you? What language is the language of love, of cooking? So that's one of the strategies that we use. And of course, there's a lot of instructional strategies to make sure that students understand that they're cognates and that they're false cognates. So there's the instructional piece, but there's also that piece that is connected to the identity, and it is connected to who do you come from. So language, identity, culture, and heritage are very, very interconnected, and they are a fiber of my being and how I show up as an educator. I don't know the language of the Laguna people, but I would definitely be a champion of preserving those values, that culture, and that language.
Thank you so much for that response, Ms. Gutierrez. And last but not least, we have Ms. Petra Solomon.
Thank you. Just some of the things when I was younger, never forget who you are and where you come from. That was always told to me, regardless of where I went, where I traveled to, still to this day by my parents. It's very, very important that all those words are passed to our youngsters that come through those doors, even adults that come through the doors. One of the things I would like to see, and it's been going, and now it's coming full force with the Office of Laguna Learning and Ms. Whitmore's program, is I would like to see, teacher or pictures of our governors on the wall. Everybody knows who the President of the United States is. Do they know who the governor is? Do they know who Lieutenant Governor is? To have the images of our tribal leadership on the walls to say, one day you can be up there on that wall. You can be a future tribal leadership. You can be councilman, councilwoman. You can be whatever you want to be. And you can actually leave the reservation, go get your education, and come back and give to your people, just as I did. So that is very important. One of the things, as far as teaching the language and the culture, it's taught to us every day. Every day that we come take a breath, we get up in the morning, our Creator has made us arrive another day, and that's very important. One of the things also too, as far as the language goes, is have our teachers more immersed, get that professional development in there. Get our kids, and I know it has started with the younger people, but have the parents, grandparents involved in that too, that process as well. As far as the teaching of it, it's just something that's really important about, we were never taught any of that. We were taught New Mexico history. I was never taught the 1680 Pueblo Revolt. That's one of the most significant things that everybody should know about. That's awesome. That's our people fighting. And that to me is very important. It shows how strong we are as a people. We're still here. We're still doing what we do on a daily basis. There's youngsters in our tribal scholarship program that we are all over the place, and that's very, very important that we still have that connection here, because I was away from Laguna for 20 years and then came back, but I still had that connection with my parents and what I was raised with. So that to me is very, very important when it comes to the history, the teachings, our dances, any kind of events that we can get the kids immersed with and involved with. The teachers, our principals, our administrative staff, that's very, very important, because then you see how important all our traditions are. That this isn't just something we do, every year. It's embedded in us. It's with us all the time. So we're already on that pathway, and I think just moving forward, we're going to just make it a lot stronger than what it is, and just having the kids realize that no matter where they go and what they decide to be when they grow up, they're still Laguna. They're still our people. We're still one. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, candidates, for those wonderful responses. I know that sometimes it's easy to skip over some things or forget some things, but you all did so well. So we have reached the end of the last of the questions. So now we're going to have an opportunity for you all to close. For the sake of time and for adhering to the board, We're going to grant a 2-minute closing. I'll be off to your right here. I'll hold up my little folder when you hit your 2-minute mark, and then you can wrap it up. Again, in the name of fairness, we're gonna popcorn this over again. So with that said, the last closing piece, the request from the board is, in these final 2 minutes, tell us why you are the ideal candidate to lead the Laguna Department of Education. And we'll start this session with Ms. Petra Solomon.
Thank you, Ms. Whitmore, for the comment and the question. One of the things that I totally believe, I am the product of this community. I am the product of Laguna. I've been through the schools, the old elementary school, all the way up to tribal scholarship portion. I feel that I can best represent the people through communicating with our tribal leadership and our people as a whole. So I feel it's very important, and that's something that I hold very close to my heart. And I feel that leading the people, once again, this was what I was meant to do, to come back and help our people. Not the fact that they need it now, but just to move further ahead and grow stronger, whether it be through education or job training or just to get to school. So those are the things I would like to do for our people and to continue to do for our people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Petra. And now we will move on to Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you. So I would offer, I'm interested in being your next superintendent because I would like to have an impact on furthering that work that has already been done. I know that there's an interest in from birth through graduation and beyond. And that's what I've been seeking. Where can I find an organization that I could bring my different experiences and expertise and help make sure that it becomes even stronger so that the students that are within them, and I know I've said this multiple times, but it's what's in my heart, that they have strong educational outcomes. Because no matter what, if we don't prepare students academically, but also with the soft skills, when they go out after the day after graduation, what will be waiting for them? And for me, it's a passion to make sure that the day after graduation, every single child is prepared to make the decision that they want to make for themselves as an adult, not the decision that they have to default to, because that's as far as their education got them. Being a product of very deficit educational systems, I've dedicated my last almost 3 decades to making sure every child, and not just because it's the catchphrase of the day, but that every single child, the day after graduation, can make a life choice that's going to make them a happy adult and that they can contribute back so that the next generation also has those opportunities.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gutierrez. And now we will go to Mr. Sims Jr.
Thank you. I would like to be your next superintendent for two main reasons. Number one, I'm not a perfect person, but I can be perfect for you. And let me explain why. You see a gentleman in front of you with a suit, fancy bow tie, but my life story is probably very similar to many of these children and many of these families. I know what it's like to live and be raised in a big family. I know what it's like to live and be raised in poverty. I know what it's like to be homeless, but I also know what it's like to have grit. I know what it's like to have resilience. I know what it's like to have a dream. I know what it's like to have a vision. And I want to share that with these kids. I want to share it with our parents. I want to give hope to all And most importantly, I may be sitting right here before all of you, but it's not about me. It's really about us. It's about the whole community. It's about Laguna. And because it's about Laguna and it's not about me, I want to have that responsibility. I want to have that privilege to serve you. And I want to have that opportunity to once again build a very large table with a lot of chairs so that everybody can have a seat at the table and share your voice. And we, not I, but we create a vision of what's best for these children, what's best for Laguna, and what's best moving forward as one. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And last but not least, Ms. Amy Seaman.
The reason why I would like the opportunity to serve in the role of superintendent for the Laguna Board of Education is because I think I'm an excellent communicator, because I'm a good listener. I feel like I can talk to a lot of people and hear from a lot of different viewpoints and try to distill down what are the most important things and then prioritize those things and move them forward and elevate them. I like to think of myself as an innovator. If you have taught for 18 years in this state, you know you have never had enough money or budget for things. So you find ways to get what you need for your babies because they need things, and the federal government or the state is not going to give it to you. So I like to think that I'm an out-of-the-box thinker and an innovator in that way. And last of all, I think my value system seems to align to what I see of the Laguna people. The focus on family, on culture, on making sure that we prioritize our tiniest citizens who have the least voice. And lastly, I believe that I'm a person of great integrity, and I would like to inspire my fellow educators, especially the teachers for whom I will be serving as their leader, to do the same, because they will in turn role model that for our students. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much, everyone. Can we get a round of applause for the candidates? Thank you so much. You can breathe a sigh of relief. Part one is over. We'll wish you all the best of luck in your interviews tomorrow. Before we close, I would just like to give some small thank yous, well, some big thank yous actually. First of all, to Dax and Lorenzo in the back, IT. Thank you guys so much for doing the live stream, setting up everything, handling all the mishaps that happens, but you handled it so well. To Miss Rachel Chino, HR, who did a lot of the background stuff. Thank you so much, Miss Rachel, for everything. I know this was a lot of work for you, but you did so great. I would also like to give a thank you to the catering and providing your meal tonight. I hope you all enjoyed it. That was so great. Thank you to our local caterer. To Miss Holly Solomon and the Facilities Department for getting everything squared away and situated. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to the board for being here tonight, so much for this opportunity, the setup, and for the community to see everything that's going on. We appreciate your time here tonight, board. And last but not least, thank you so much to the stakeholders. Again, this means so much to show your vested interest in the community and that you care about your schools and your children and what's happening. This means so much to us. I see so many of you who hold multiple roles. Some of you are my colleagues. Some of you are also grandparents or parents to children here, and we appreciate that. And some of you are just vested in the community in general. Thank you to everyone at home who's streaming. Thank you to my team for sending me updates. Shout out to my mom and dad for cheering me on this whole time. This was super fun. Again, thank you all so much, and we look forward to seeing the outcome of everything. Thank you all for your time. Safe travels home, everyone. Good night.